Hi, everyone. This is Ellen Red, Ascension Guide, Twin Flame Coach, and Medium. I am here with a really lovely friend of mine, Lacey Marie, and we wanted to come on today. Lacey is a motivational speaker. She runs a large group called Boobless Life. She's been a TED speaker. She is an advocate for breast implant illness. And I wanted to come on today to go into a little deeper discussion for you guys, for my audience, as well as for hers, to tie together the issues related to breast implant illness, our bodies, our governments, and how that all affects ascension and your spirituality as well. So we thought that this would be a good pairing of information. So you guys have kind of heard my story, or at least the people that are on my channel have, and I want to bring on Lacey and talk about her story too, so that you guys can kind of hear her story, which is really quite extraordinary. So I'll let you come on first, Lacey, and introduce yourself. Add anything that I might have missed.
Great. Thank you so much, Ellen. Okay. So yeah, my name is Lacey Marie, and I'm so excited to be here because this is the thing that I'm the most passionate about, is educating women and talking, well, to women and men about breast issues, because there are so many. So my story goes back that I was actually married at a very young age. I was 18 when I got married. That was my culture and what I was raised in. And throughout trying to be married at a young age and like grow up together, we ran into a whole bunch of issues in our in our marriage. And it got to the point that things were getting pretty bad. You know, it was our relationship was in a pretty rough spot. And I thought, okay, I'm just going to become a better person. I'm going to look better to save my marriage, so that we can continue on with this traditional nuclear family type dynamic. And so one of the first things I did was consult with a plastic surgeon and got my breast implants. And as my story unfolds, I became very, very sick. And
how long did it take you to start feeling sick?
So, that's always a tricky question for me, because I got my breast implants and then it was less than a year later, I had a surprise pregnancy.
Oh.
We ended up pregnant, and it was a really difficult pregnancy. And it was the sickest I'd been with any of my kids. And I have 4 kids. And it was the sickest I'd been with any of them. And then I just never quite fully recovered from there. Yeah. So I believe that when I got pregnant, it escalated or made the illness present itself faster, but it was also masked and disguised by pregnancy symptoms.
Yeah. Okay. Makes sense.
Yeah. So it just became a very interesting process, because then I had my son, and I actually haven't spoken about this at all, but I had my son, and he had more issues as an infant, as a baby. And I relate them all to having breast implants. Mm-hmm. During my pregnancy, I think I nursed him for about over a year. Because his poor little digestive system was just a mess. And at one point, I had him into the doctors, and they diagnosed him or put him as a failure to thrive baby, because he was struggling so badly.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up, because in my consciousness, I have an understanding that breast implant illness is very much, and it's not the only thing, but it's one of the things that I believe is contributing to Morgellons disease as well. And now I don't have a way to prove that. None of us do, right? We can't prove it, but I understand the way that the body is designed, because I've been shown a lot of things by Creator and in other realms, right? And so for me, it makes sense that when you put plastic in your body, because Morgellons diseases, they're finding these little plastic fibers in your skin coming out, and so, the idea of having plastic inside your body, and your body is constantly trying to reject the plastic, right? It's trying to push it out, and then it also starts to kind of disintegrate. That's what happened with my implants, is they started to disintegrate. And I'm surprised that you got symptoms right away. It took me a long time. I had them, but I didn't understand that that's what they were for almost 23 years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so
Wow.
I was dealing with so many other things. I really didn't understand, and I was being told that it was nerve damage because my back was burning ever since it happened. You know, it was like nerve damage in the back, but they were thinking it
Yeah.
was related to something else, and fibromyalgia and so on and so forth. But those little
Yes.
plastic particles can't, you know, like your body's going to reject it, right? So I
Yeah,
think that there might be
absolutely.
a very solid correlation to that. And I could go into other details of what other types of plastics are getting into our systems through our
Uh-huh.
food. But the
Yes.
breast alone is huge enough, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It is intense. And, you know, it took a long time to come to that conclusion that that's what it was.
Mhm,
It took about 8 years. Well,
mhm,
probably about 7. It took about 8 years for me to get them actually removed. But the thing that is so cool, and as we're talking about this, is I became really sick by the time my son was a year old. Well, probably about a year and a half, I was pretty out of commission. I was really struggling. And the thing that I found so interesting is at that point, I hadn't had like my massive, what I like to call, you know, my massive spiritual awakening. I was still very in a different realm. And I was seeking out a lot of Western medicine help because
mhm,
I didn't know what to do.
mhm,
I was having severe digestive issues,
mhm.
constant diarrhea, and was going to get help. And through every test you can imagine, and I mean, I had lost within just a very short amount of time, I think it was like 20 pounds. Um, and the doctors were so willing, and I know this is what they're taught, they were so willing and so quick to react that I went in, I think it was like 6 surgeries in 5 months, and I was completely gutted. Anything, anything that was optional or is optional inside the human body was willingly removed from my body by medical professionals. But when I would ask or mention to remove my breast implants, the man-made item that has been put into my body that is made of plastics and
Right.
toxins and silicones, they would reassure me that that was not the issue because it was
Mhm.
FDA approved.
Yeah, isn't that disturbing? I just, my blood boils talking to you because it makes me so mad. I guess mine took a longer time to figure out, but I'm grateful that I didn't trust the white coats by the time it happened. And I had to teach them and school them what was wrong with me and demand
Yeah.
that they remove it from me. So, but okay,
Yeah.
so I am so sorry, first of all, that you had to go through that. And I'm not saying that from a place of, pity, but I am sorry that you experienced the suffering there.
Yeah.
And can you tell the audience or everybody that's listening, like when you say that you were gutted and had parts of your body removed, what can you give us some examples?
Absolutely. So I was 29 and went through a full hysterectomy.
Mm.
They Everything was removed. They went
Why?
to extremes because I was so sick and they didn't know what it was.
Mm.
And I don't know, the assumption was, okay, maybe it's something in her uterus, maybe it's these I had varicose veins on my uterus. And so they thought maybe this is contributing to some of the issues, such as low blood pressure, high heart rate, weight loss, anxiety. And so they did, and it was a process, So first it was my uterus, then they went in and individually removed each ovary. But they were pretty aggressive in the process because what happened was when they went in the first time, I mean, and I have pictures of all of this, but they said that my internal organs just looked beautiful, healthy, and strong. So they didn't understand why I was so sick. But subsequently, every time that they went in through surgical procedure after that, within a 6-month period, my internal organs and like lining of my abdomen was a black tar substance. and they didn't understand why. And so they would scrape that black tar substance. They were very aggressive in the hysterectomy, you know, so a lot of times in a hysterectomy, they'll leave portions, you know, such as ovaries or whatever. And they went in and took the ovaries, the fallopian tubes, the cervix, everything, just extreme measures. So that was done, along with every time they were in, they would scrape the lining of my abdomen to get that black tar substance off, which resulted in more pain and hernias and issues. Let's see, I know my gallbladder was removed, my appendix, and I think that was it, just off the top of my head.
Oh,
it was,
gosh, like that's not enough. Just real quick before we move forward, for anybody watching, this little black movement back here is a cat. So since I work with a lot of people in the spiritual psychic realms, it's not a boogie monster or anything, it's a cat. So just inserting that. I know people get weirded out by it. So, but
that's
okay.
amazing.
It's just a cat and they're good luck. So okay. And then we get to your breasts, because that was all prior to even the other issue that then you faced once you got to realize that that's what was causing it.
Yeah, well, and you know, backing up just a little bit, like still not even realizing it was my breast. What ended up happening, because this was such a cool awakening for me. I mean, this is the trans, you know, the point that I was actually able to awaken and transform into a different way of thinking. But it was after all of my surgeries, and I was incredibly ill. I believe I was about 80 pounds. And I was wheeled into yet another doctor's appointment. And this doctor, I remember him looking at me, and he said, he goes, we don't know what is wrong. We don't know what is taking your life, but at the rate you're going, you don't have much longer. So plan your funeral, get your affairs in order. And, you know, I remember leaving that appointment and fully wrapping my mind around that it was time for me to go. And I, you know, wrote letters to my kids and made video diaries and went and said started to say my final goodbyes, had people come over and say goodbye, and, you know, planning my actual funeral. And I remember plain as day, I was in and out of consciousness. And I remember having this moment that I connected with somebody on the other side, and just plain as can be, had an incredible conversation. And right then and there, I knew and I understood that there was so much more to this place that we are in than what meets the eye, or that what a lot of people know. And I was asked, you know, just very specifically by this person that I met on the other side. And they said, Lacey, you have a choice. You can either stay here on earth, or you can transition into something else. Like, there is no good or bad, right or wrong answer. It's your choice. And I sat with this being and, you know, replayed my life and saw my kids and went through these different things. And I was at peace. And I said, I am done. I want to transition. I'm done with that chapter. Like, it's been real. Peace out, you know, like, let's move on.
Right.
And right at that moment, you know, I remember this being looking at me and saying, okay, are you sure? And it was almost like this last second, something clicked inside of me. And I went, no, I'm not sure. And I was shown a lot of things. And so I was like, okay, send me back. You know, and I was told, okay, we will, but this is going to be the hardest thing you've ever been through. Are you sure you want to go back? And I said, yes, I'm sure. And that was the pivotal moment, the turning point for me, that I, you know, was able to open and discover and have my spiritual awakening.
Okay, good. So that happened. Well, first of all, I'll just state to you, that's really interesting that happened, that you had been told that you were given a choice, because for me, I had a very similar thing years ago when I quit smoking, because I smoked cigarettes since I was 12 years old. And that was a long time ago. And so I smoked them for a very long time. And I had these angelic beings come to me and tell me that I needed to quit smoking. And they showed me this black stuff in my left, lung area. So I thought for sure I got cancer or something. And then after I quit smoking, I flatlined 4 times. I even got to where you're really, really cold because you're dying. And I was in my backyard for probably a couple of weeks, coming in and out of consciousness from that. But they made it very clear to quit smoking and showed me there was something going on in the left breast or lung area, but they didn't make it clear about the breast implants. So I spent another 4 years sitting in a sick bed trying to figure out, okay, I quit smoking. What else could it be now? It still took me a long time to understand those darn implants, because we're so conditioned. Like now it makes so much sense. You put plastic in your body, you're gonna get sick. It's so obvious to me now, right?
But in the moment you're like, psh,
well, even in trying to identify, because when you're that sick, your brain fog's there and you can't quite think. But it's kind of like we're so conditioned to accept breast implants as being normal that my mind wasn't thinking, oh, those are bad for you. I knew smoking was bad. I knew that drinking alcohol was bad. I quit coffee because it was making my stomach lining come up even more, because the boobs are damaging to your digestive system. But it's like I quit all these things. I have this Mary Poppins life. I'm doing Ascension guidance and talking to spirits every day and dancing with butterflies and all these things. And I'm thinking, how can I still be sick? And it's the boobs. And then it's like, well, duh. But at the time, aren't we so conditioned as a society to pretend that that's normal? Like we get our Barbie dolls and they're plastic, and now we become plastic.
Well, and I don't know, like one thing I ran into is because I had somebody, a very dear friend of mine, sit me down and say, Lacey, look, this is what I had. I had my breast implants removed and I feel so much better. And she flat out told me, you have this too, you should look into it. But I was still in the headspace of, not to me. Yeah, that happened to you, but not to me. Like, I'm healthy. I do all the things, like, I take care of myself, which I did, but I was in such strong denial that it wouldn't happen to me, and I wouldn't be that statistic that it wasn't me.
I'm so glad you brought that up, because as you probably know, I have like some, kind of a growing audience throughout, and I work with a lot of other spiritual people who are on the ascension path and on the awakening path. And that we're all in different layers of evolution there. And so when I shared my first video, which took a lot of courage for me because I wasn't even healthy all the way yet, but I was so passionate about telling others how important it is to become aware of this, because I didn't know for all these years. I never heard the term breast implant illness until this last year.
Wow.
Maybe 6 months before I got my surgery, I heard of breast implant illness, and then I found a way to go. As soon as I knew about it, I was like, okay, that's what it is. But it's like I never heard of it, so I never had the chance to start realizing. But here I started trying to share this. And I'm telling you, I literally had people come back on me and say, oh, well, my vibration's really high. And I'm just thinking, you don't understand. You can have the highest vibration on the planet, but you're still putting plastic in your body, and your body has to be aligned with your soul. You can't have one and not the other. It's so distorted.
Absolutely. And that was 100% me. 100%. And it took me a long time to see a different perspective. It really did. It took a while, but that was part of the journey. But it happened. So yes.
I'm glad that you brought that up though, because I think that's great. And I think that other women need to hear that that's a natural part of going through awakening on different layers and levels, that you have to you know, sometimes you got to sit and chew on that crap, huh? It's crap. And
You do.
it's a crappy pill that you're swallowing there. And you got to sit and let it digest for a minute. And so I
Absolutely.
understand. Yeah.
Absolutely. And it's different for everybody. You know, just like you said, we digest and absorb things at different times. But yeah, I was 100% in denial for several years.
Yeah. Okay. So after you heard about the implant illness, you were still denying it for years?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
That's not my problem. Like, no.
Oh,
No,
so
I'm
what
fine.
exactly caused you to figure out and just realize and accept that was?
Honestly, it was just sitting with it.
Yeah.
It was being a part. It was being a part of the community, like being a part of the Facebook groups of friends, everything. And even though I still didn't believe that that was me, because at this point I was doing better. I had gone through a divorce. I was moved out of the house, and I was like, that was probably my problem. You know, it was the toxic marriage that caused my illness, which, yes, I believe that contributed to some of it. But by the time I learned about breast implant illness, I was managing. You know, I was able to do work. I was able to go get groceries. I was able to live a somewhat normal life. I was traveling, you know, fairly quote normal life. So that's why I think I sat in denial for so long, is because I was like, well, I'm not as bad as I was, and I'm not as bad as that woman over there, so I don't have it. It's not me. But yeah, then once I finally I just stayed in that community, and every once in a while something would pop up on Facebook, or something would pop up on a podcast, or something would randomly pop up, you know, through YouTube or somewhere, and I would just pick up little pieces here and there. And then when the time was right, or when I was open to it, that's when I really opened my mind, and I was like, this is what I have. This is it. So
yeah, your consciousness was ready to finally accept it.
Yeah.
So then at that point you realized it was breast implant illness, but can you tell the story of how you actually had your breast, because you had your whole breast removed also, not just the implant removal? Can you tell that story?
Yeah, absolutely. So I started down the journey of trying to get my breast implants removed, and I met with plastic surgeons and doctors, because there is one way to get them out of your body. And I ran into a lot of resistance, a lot still.
Yeah, I know. That's the unfortunate part, is that so many women right now are realizing that they're sick from them, and they're fighting with the darn medical field to get them removed. And that is killing women. We'll go into a little bit more of this after you tell your story, but I just have to throw that in right now, that is so infuriating. And that's why I think it's so important and awesome that people like you and me are doing this work to come out and share this with people, because the sooner that we really understand it and can start to influence the medical field, the better. We know that they're not in the industry to heal us.
Correct. Yes. That's so powerful.
I was lucky in the sense that I was so darn sick and bedridden. I was in a bed for almost 5 years sick and pretty much dying. And I had for so long thought that it was from the smoking, that I was quite sure I was just had cancer and was going to die. But I was in that bed for so long. And by the time I got to the doctors and realized it was from the breast implant, I was able to, miraculously, I was able to get the surgery covered by my insurance and get right in and get right out. So it was a great blessing. But I was on my deathbed, really. And so it was kind of like, I know that this is what it is and it's killing me. Are you going to take them out or not? You know?
Yeah.
And also I was in severe pain, and I still am to this day, severe burning pain from my breast all the way into my thigh, like chemical burns that was like lava just burning all the way down.
So it's very interesting because that's one thing that has kind of started coming to my mind or coming to me recently, is because my healing has been since I've had my breasts removed, the implants removed. So okay, so I'll go back to that. So what happened was, as I started meeting with doctors to get them removed, every time you meet with the doctor, they want to know your medical history. So you go through your history, right? And as I'm going through my history, they're looking and they're crossing, making notes and crossing things off. I had very dense breast tissue, which increases your risk for breast cancer and makes it very hard to detect. Because a regular mammogram they can't see anything with a regular mammogram with dense breast tissue. I had already had a few things that they were monitoring and watching, like questionable cysts and things that they were watching. And then I got to my family history, and I have 8 close relatives who have had cancer, most of them directly correlated to breast cancer. So I had, I think, 2 or 3 doctors recommend that I get genetic testing, and I finally did. So I got my genetic testing, and it came back that I had 2 markers for breast cancer. So I met with the oncologist at that point, and the oncologist was sweet, sweet guy. And he just said, Lacey, with your family history and these 2 genetic markers, it is not if, but when you get breast cancer. So we moved forward in discussion, and it became another fight that I had to really, really defend myself, because the doctors at that point wanted to remove my breast tissue and keep my breast implants. It was insane.
I have been, an advocate for using white coats only in absolute rare occasions, if it's something like brain surgery and it's the only way you're going to save your life. And in our case, in order to remove the implants, you have to do it surgically, so you need to use them. And there are certain cases where white coats come in handy, but in general, we like to avoid them at all costs, because they are completely wired the wrong way. They're wired against you. They're wired against health. They're wired against your natural design. They're wired against your natural immunity. They're programmed in these schools by people who want you to be on their pills for the rest of eternity. They make money, big money. I wonder how much money they made taking all of your organs.
Right. Oh, a lot.
Yeah, and I wonder how much money, don't get mad at me for this, but I wonder how much money that they're making selling people's organs that they take out when they're not supposed to.
Absolutely.
Okay? There's a black market for that out there. And and that's why a lot of people don't want to put their organ donors on their driver's license anymore. It's getting, that treacherous in this territory.
That intense. Huh.
So,
interesting.
And I don't want to go like way in the dark side there, but there's some real things to consider also with this type of behavior, because it's almost sociopathic to tell somebody to remove their breasts and keep the plastic in that's killing them.
Right. And my surprise was how many of them said that. Because I would literally go from doctor to doctor, because I'm like, no, I want everything removed. And it was so hard to find, because I had to have a general surgeon and a plastic surgeon, because the plastic surgeon has to remove the implants, the general surgeon has to remove the breast tissue. They won't work together. So to find 2 doctors that would play together and honor my wishes was really hard. And I did find 2. And then 2 weeks before my surgery, the plastic surgeon left, bounced, was just gone.
Wow.
And so that put me right back at square one. I'm like, okay. But it made me question and doubt. I'm like, well, if my general surgeon is still here and willing to do the surgery, do I just leave them? Because is this a sign my plastic surgeon like randomly left the state 2 weeks before my surgery. So I sat with it, I meditated, I prayed, I did all of the things, and I knew that they had to be out, that this was just, I didn't have the right surgical team.
Yeah.
So I hit the streets again, and I found a different plastic surgeon who I love and adore. And he was great. And he totally agreed with everything. He was very supportive, and he's like, Lacey, I believe that more women, especially women who go through cancer, that they should have more support to go directly to flat and not even mess with any implants. So to find a plastic surgeon that is preaching that is pretty amazing.
Yeah.
Pretty amazing. So I did. I went ahead and went through the surgery and had everything removed. All of my breast tissue, nipples, all of the plastic capsules, everything was removed. And I believe that because all of my tissue was removed, my healing has been quicker and probably a little bit more solid, because I don't have the breast tissue around. How you just said that you still have this like burning sensation, because I know exactly what you're talking about. I had that burning sensation. And since everything was removed due to my family history and genetics and stuff, I don't have any of that. And so it's interesting.
Well, I want to insert for my audience also that I am not a believer of family histories leading to cancer. That my understanding is that cancer is caused by acidity in the body. So having acidity or in plastics obviously will create acidity in your body. So I don't believe in that. I do believe in family curses or family karma, where you learn behaviors from a family and it becomes your reality. And energetically, if that behavior is not in alignment with your true soul blueprint, that you will then manifest the same illness as maybe your mother and your grandmother and so on. But I do not believe that it has to do with certain genes that will create cancer. That's not, I mean, in my spiritual awakening, I was shown different, but that doesn't mean that you didn't take on some of those patterns. And by the way, spiritually speaking, breast cancer, and I'm saying this more for everybody else, but breast cancer itself is caused by the feminines being conditioned to love and nurture everybody other than the self. So by learning how to pull that nurturing energy into yourself and to start fulfilling your own cup can actually energetically reverse breast cancer. And of course, you need to keep an alkaline body as well. But I'm just throwing that out there for anybody else listening, because energetically, that's how you're going to manifest breast cancer if you are not nurturing yourself. And you're doing all, and we're conditioned in society to take care of the kids and take care of the husband and dress like a Victoria's Secret model and have a job and go to college and have a great degree and screw like a rabbit at the end of the day and make sure the house is clean and make sure that you're a very good cook. And after you've done all that for everybody, you have nothing left for yourself. You're depleted, and it manifests breast cancer. Okay, so I just want to make sure that that's out there, because as women, and especially on this discussion, energetically speaking, everything begins with energy. So and I'm sure I can tell, and I know you enough to know that you were probably that mother, weren't you? Like look, you went and got the breast implants to improve your marriage. It was taking care of them and not you, right? So it kind of goes hand in hand. And so tisk, tisk, tisk to the white coats that are preaching the wrong BS, and shame on all of you, you know? And but anyways, so as far as ascension, and again, the energy goes with healing, whether you I wanted to ask a couple of things for you, and then I want to add a couple of things on my end. But for you, do you have like phantom pains for your breasts and for your other organs that were removed? Do you feel the feeling of phantom, like you're trying to feel them and they're not there now?
The thing that's very interesting is I did 100%, and I still do at times with my hysterectomy, with my uterus, my ovaries. Absolutely. that matter of fact, just the other day I was like, feels like I am getting my period, but that is not possible.
Your
You know,
body's
so
still
yeah,
trying to have the functions, huh? Okay.
yeah, so absolutely. With my breasts, it's been very interesting. I have not as intense. You know, now that I'm thinking about it, you pose that question, I'm like, not really. There's been times like I'll get itchy with nerves healing.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
I itch a lot. And then there's times that like I go, oh, you guys, leaning over the shopping cart to put like groceries or something in the shopping cart, and because I'm really short, I'm about 5'3",
Oh,
so
I
I
hear.
hit the shopping cart all the time with my chest. And so there are times that I go to bend over and I think, oh, where are my built-in airbags? Like, this is gonna hurt. And then I hit the shopping cart. But it's interesting because with the removal of my breasts and my breast tissue, I actually feel more at home in my body and
Mhm.
more like myself than I ever did with breasts, ever.
Interesting. I mean, I'm glad. I'm glad that you're healing and that you're better and everything else. But it's very interesting that you're not feeling the phantom pains there, and so and maybe
Yeah.
that's good. And maybe your spirit guide is protecting you anyways, so that you don't have that suffering since you've already had enough. But
Yes, very well could be.
I mentioned in the last video that I did a little bit about light language and how light language was coming to me in relation to how the body itself, all of our organs, every part of our body is perfectly there by creation from prime source creator, meaning everything has a part to do with one another in the body system itself, and that our bodies are like living libraries of information. So is the more that we tune into the spirit world, and the more that we tune into ourselves and our bodies and our energies, we actually record information in the breast. So the breast tissues, as I was shown by spirit guides, that, and they were doing light language talking, they talked to me like tick, 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 kind of like through my DNA, right? So they were showing me through my DNA like this, all the way through my bloodstream and everywhere, but especially around the breasts, that the breasts are where we store all emotions. All emotions in the cosmos are stored within the breast, and each cell or woman, each woman, feminine, is a cell within the body of the feminine aspect of God, if you will. So we're all record keepers of emotion through our breasts. That's why I was asking if you have like any kind of experience feeling, emotion around where the breast tissue was, or did it affect you in any way that way, as far as, your own attunement to your spirituality or your femininity or that kind of a thing.
Yeah, that's a great points to bring up and great question. And what I believe is that because I had so many obstacles in getting my breast removed, whether it be the implants or the tissue itself,
Mm-hmm.
and because I was more aware and spiritually awakened than previously,
Yeah.
I did a lot of work leading up to my surgery, a lot of conversation with my breast, a lot of even thinking and moving. Like, I remember one day laying in bed before I was going in for my surgery, and I was specifically thinking of the good memories, like nursing my babies. And even though I didn't love nursing, there are some sweet memories around it.
Yeah.
And holding my babies, and I don't know, just things that I loved about my breasts. And I remember moving, like, now looking back, I'm like, I do remember taking those and holding those and like moving them closer in.
Mm-hmm.
And then I had a lot of trauma in my breast tissue, a lot.
Mm-hmm. They do store trauma.
And that, I remember saying, it's okay, you can go with the breast. Like, I'm done carrying this trauma.
Mm-hmm.
So that's probably a really good point to bring out, because people ask me all the time, like, how do you still feel feminine? Do you still, you know, have this femininity? Like, do you feel like less of a woman? You have no womanly parts left to your human body.
Mhm.
And I'm always kind of taken back by it, because I feel more at home and more feminine than I ever did before.
Mhm. Well,
But
you
I think
look
it's
feminine. You're darling. You're obviously adorable.
I say, but I think it's probably due to the amount of work and awareness that I had before the removal of my breasts.
Yeah, that's
Because,
good. That answered
you
my
know,
question, and I'm glad that you were able to go through that process first, because that would have been, had I been having you in a private session, that would have been my concern, is did you work through the energy of it first? Because yeah, your body is just a vessel, although I know that anytime you lose a limb on it, you're going to go through some type of phantom or some type of energetic work around that, but it sounds like you already did a lot of that anyways. And
you know,
I'm
and
glad. Oh, go ahead.
that's probably why there's more phantom pains around the hysterectomy, because I was not as aware and awake at that point. Like, that was very
Yeah,
traumatic,
yeah.
traumatic for me.
That would probably be some more area then for you to do some energy work on. Your ovaries store, they store love, and they also store abortions and miscarriage of love, not just babies, but love and intuition too. So there, it's all connected in the ovaries and that part of your womanhood and your womb.
Okay.
And so there's womb trauma also that can happen etherically too. You know, you as a feminine, and I would, if I were you, I would focus now on that. What does that mean for you, and what else does it have to show you that you can heal from? Because I'll bet you there's some beautiful magical gifts there waiting for you, right? Okay, that's so awesome. I'm so glad that you were able to work through all that. And what kind of questions do you have? Do you have questions for me? Because I think, no.
Oh my goodness, I don't know. Like, this has just been so incredible. Like, I'm sure this has been very, very helpful and beneficial. You know a lot. You have a lot of insight. And I am just so happy that you are sharing and willing to help and guide people, because we need it.
We need each other, and we need to keep coming on and doing these kinds of things.
Yes.
I just want to add to the collective, really, to all of the women and men, because again, as you know, this is affecting the men now too, the transgender community, as well as the men who are putting those in for pecs and muscles and butt implants and everything else now. So it's really affecting the world. It's not just a feminine issue, although the breast implants themselves has to do, like I said, energetically with the programming in society to make the feminine look a certain way, but it's really affecting everybody now because they're doing it to the men in their own right.
Right. Well, and even on the flip side of that, the men who are trying to support the women who have breast implant illness and who do have breast implants, it's those men need a lot of support. Like, there's a lot of them that are trying to understand, and there are some that are not, but they definitely, I think, are a big part as the collective to some of these things that are surfacing and coming up. Because I know that even when I was going through my breast implant illness, to have the person that you are tied to, or you're with, okay, the person that's supposed to be an advocate for you or with you, to have them not understand breast implant illness, and having to have that one more person that you're trying to educate or convince, it's
Right.
incredibly difficult.
Right, which then energetically adds to the burden of breast cancer itself, because the woman again isn't being supported emotionally, and the woman is kind of the carrier of emotional energy. So that's a really awesome point to make too. And also just, I guess since we brought that in, another role that the masculines have in society is the fact that they are projecting these false ideals of what women are supposed to look like in order to be, excuse my French here, but a bull, right?
Yes.
So in order for you to be attractive to them, you have to have a certain look so that they can come and do, use you as an ashtray, if you will. And that's adding to the collective problem. And so, and I'm not saying all men are that way. Awakened men are not at all. But I'm saying, like, there's a collective of men that are projecting that into society because they themselves are in that program. So that's the MK Ultra programming that's coming
Correct.
through.
And then with that, because in my personal experience, what I have found was that whether I was with breast implants or without, because I get asked often how I'm perceived by men, right? Like, how am I received or perceived by men at this point? They definitely treat me better now, because I don't have that object, but totally treated amazing. I have found too that one of the things that I'm trying to raise awareness around is the circles that you and I run in. We are pretty much like women supporting women, women empowering women. But if we get outside of our circles, it is the women who are more judgmental and harsh on our physical appearance than it is the men.
It can be, for sure. I am in my world surrounded by a lot of awakened souls online, men and women. But when I go into the world itself and I'm out of my zone, right? And now I'm back in that third dimensional world with all the third dimensional people, it's kind of scary out there. It's kind of scary. I'm so glad that I grew out of that, for one thing. But yeah, in that realm, you're right. Both the masculines and the feminine, when they're in that lower state of consciousness, are projecting onto each other the same kind of BS. And it does oftentimes come from the feminines. And as a matter of fact, that's what led me to get my implants when I was 20 years old. I think I was 21, is that my sister and all the girls that I modeled with back then had them. And so I was influenced very much by the women, but I was also influenced by the men, and I could see that the men were giving way more money and jobs and opportunities to the women that had them. So it was kind of like it was a two-way system, right? The masculines and the feminine are both party to this system until they grow through it spiritually. But anyway, I think that was probably, I mean, unless you have anything else that you think is important that we should share, I just wanted to make sure everybody got to hear your story so that they could see, oh, I know what I wanted to add. I do have a couple of other women that are going through breast cancer and having their breasts removed. And so in that case, what would you say to them?
Do the work before, if you can. Do just like what we talked about, do the energetic work of holding those memories and those emotions and whatever energies you can close. But it is just, I have found it to be an incredible experience. I am incredibly happy and free, and feel free to, they can always feel free to reach out for additional support and connection and community.
Boobless Life, right?
Boobless Life,
Boobless Life. And
Lacey Marie, Boobless Life. Yep.
Yeah. Okay. And I think you're a great example of life goes on and even gets better when you think something is bad in your third dimensional mind. You really face it and embrace it, and you realize, hey, life is pretty damn good anyway. Right? You're awesome. Thank you so much for coming on. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Ellen. I appreciate it.
See you next time.